Imagine a quiet home where an entire family, even young children, were slaughtered in the dead of night with a single axe. More than a century has passed, yet the killer was never found. And to this day, people swear they still hear children's screams and footsteps echoing inside that house. The Villisca Axe Murder House. Is it haunted by the innocent victims or by the darkness that killed them? Story 1. The Villisca Axe Murders. It was a quiet summer night in Villisca, Iowa, June 10th, 1912. Inside a modest white house on a corner lot, the Moore family prepared for bed. Josiah and Sarah Moore tucked in their 4 children. 2 visiting girls, the Stillinger sisters, also lay down to sleep after an evening of church activities. By dawn, all 8 of them would be dead. The crime was as brutal as it was mysterious. Someone had entered the Moore home in the middle of the night. With Josiah's own axe, the intruder bludgeoned the entire family, parents, children, and their 2 young guests. The blows were so violent that some victims were unrecognizable. The house remained eerily silent until a neighbor, concerned that the family hadn't appeared that morning, entered and made the grisly discovery. What she found was beyond comprehension. 8 lifeless bodies, a blood-soaked axe, and a scene so horrific that investigators were left shaken. But who had done it? Suspects emerged. A traveling minister, a local man with a grudge, even serial killers passing through the Midwest. Yet despite multiple trials and endless theories, no one was ever convicted. The killer vanished into history, leaving behind only whispers and questions. But the story doesn't end there. Over the decades, the house where the murders took place gained a darker reputation. Locals reported strange sounds, footsteps on empty floors, children's voices calling out, doors opening and closing by themselves. Visitors spoke of overwhelming feelings of dread and sudden cold chills. Paranormal investigators who dared to spend nights inside claimed to capture disembodied voices, shadowy figures, and even violent attacks from unseen forces. Some left terrified, swearing never to return. Today, the Villisca Axe Murder House still stands. Preserved almost exactly as it was in 1912, it has become both a macabre tourist attraction and one of the most infamous haunted locations in America. But the question remains, is it haunted by the restless spirits of the victims? Or does the evil of the killer still linger inside those blood-stained walls? Over 100 years have passed, and the crime remains unsolved. No justice, no closure, only an eternal silence, broken by echoes of that dreadful night. The Villisca Axe Murders remind us of one terrifying truth. Sometimes the most horrific monsters are not ghosts, but the humans who walk among us. Story 2. The Amityville Horror. On November 13th, 1974, in a quiet suburb of Amityville, New York, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in their sleep. With a rifle, he shot his parents and 4 siblings, one by one, as they lay helpless in their beds. But this was only the beginning of the nightmare. A year later, George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, moved into the very same house. They believed it was their dream home, large, beautiful, and sold at a suspiciously low price. For 28 days, they lived a horror no family should endure. Almost immediately, strange events began. The sound of footsteps echoed through empty rooms. Doors slammed shut on their own. Cold spots appeared without reason. But soon, things turned darker. Green slime oozed from the walls. A swarm of flies infested the house, even in the dead of winter. Disembodied voices whispered through the halls. Kathy claimed she was touched and scratched by unseen hands, while George found himself waking up every night at exactly 3:15 a.m., the very hour the murders had taken place. One of the children discovered an invisible friend named Jody, who appeared as a monstrous pig-like figure with glowing red eyes. George swore he saw those same red eyes staring at him through the windows at night. As the days passed, the family's personalities changed. George grew increasingly violent and unstable, as if the house itself was trying to consume him. Kathy dreamed of the murders in vivid detail, even describing things only the killer could have known. Priests who attempted to bless the house reported being driven away by angry voices shouting, "Get out!" Finally, after less than a month, the Lutz family fled the house in the middle of the night, leaving all their belongings behind. They never returned. When investigators later entered, they found no physical explanation for the events. No toxic substances, no structural issues. Only the chilling testimony of the family and the legend that grew around their story. Skeptics called it a hoax. Believers called it proof of pure evil. But one fact remains. 6 members of the DeFeo family were murdered in that house. And what happened afterward turned it into the most infamous haunted home in America. Books, movies, documentaries, all tried to capture the horror of what the Lutz family claimed. But those 28 nights remain one of the greatest unsolved hauntings in history. Some say the house was cursed. Others say it was built on ancient haunted ground. And some whisper that it still waits. The Amityville Horror is not just a story. It is a warning that sometimes homes remember the blood spilled within their walls. Story 3, The Enfield Poltergeist. It was August 1977. In a quiet suburb of Enfield, London, a mother of 4, Peggy Hodgson, tucked her children into bed inside their small council house on 284 Green Street. Life was hard, but ordinary, until that night. Her daughters, Margaret and Janet, complained their beds were shaking. At first, Peggy dismissed it as childish imagination, but then she heard it herself. The faint sound of knocking. First on the walls, then on the ceiling. The knocks grew louder, more insistent, until the entire house seemed to come alive. Chairs slid across the floor by themselves. Toys were hurled across rooms by an unseen force. Heavy furniture toppled over as if pushed by invisible hands. One night, Peggy ran into her daughter's bedroom after hearing screams. What she saw froze her in terror. Her daughter, Janet, lifted into the air and thrown violently across the room by something she could not see. Word spread quickly. Neighbors came, police came. Even they witnessed the strange events. A chair moved across the room on its own, right in front of officers. Reporters flooded the house. Paranormal investigators arrived, and among them were the most famous demonologists of all time, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Janet became the center of the activity. She would go into strange trances. Voices would come out of her mouth, deep, growling, nothing like a child's. "I am Bill," one voice declared. "This is my house." Bill was the name of a man who had once lived and died in that very house. Photographs captured Janet midair, twisted in impossible positions, as if thrown by some violent, unseen force. Recordings captured the chilling voices that came from her body. But skeptics argued it was a hoax, that the girls faked it for attention, that the levitations were just jumps caught on camera. And yet, even after years of study, no one could fully explain everything. The sounds, the objects moving, the voices that seemed to come from beyond the grave. For more than a year, the Hodgson family lived in terror. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the haunting stopped. But Janet later admitted the presence never truly left her. Even as an adult, she claimed the voices still whispered to her at night. The Enfield house still stands today, and many say, if you listen closely on a quiet night, you can still hear the knocking.